Shot clock at 7. Reaves.
Guy having come off your bench now.
He's been Philly for a while. Look at the move. Austin pays it off.
Austin Reaves leaves it for the Akron Hammer. Lebron James.
I saw this man live just a few weeks ago playing against the Chicago Bulls at the United Center, and while I had watched Austin Reaves play from time to time and catching Lakers games on League Pass up until that point, I thought Reaves was getting more praise than he actually deserved across NBA fandom and the media. That is until I saw up close and personal seeing him play, and I have to say the kid is a legit competitor that impacts the game more than you think with his improved shooting, handles, passing, his overall offensive efficiency, and even his defense has become more respectable. Hell, at least he puts effort on that end of the floor, which is more than a lot of guys can say in the NBA today. And for a guy who wasn't heavily recruited out of high school, went undrafted, and had to earn his way in getting a two-way contract with the Lakers, to finally establishing himself as someone who belongs in this league as a key rotational player. And with Reaves set to become a restricted free agent and with his growing success and fit on the Lakers roster, it leaves a lot for them to consider going into the offseason in order for them to be able to retain Reaves for the long term. If you're new to the channel and you like this type of content, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a video, and in return I'll be providing more NBA content like this. Now, it's always a great story when you see a player going from being an unknown, low-level recruit coming out of high school, slowly develop and improve their game to where they find themselves as a prominent figure on an NBA roster. Some players develop later than others, and seeing those come into the league on the non-traditional path of being a 5-star recruit, going to a top college program, and being a one-and-done player who gets drafted as a top pick into the league. And for the LA Lakers, this is the second time they've hit on a gem they've been able to sign as a two-way player. The prior one being Alex Caruso, who started coming up big for them with his tenacious defense, hustle and grit, and even those highlight reel dunks that would always get the bench off their seats. Caruso was instrumental to the Lakers' bubble run championship in 2020, but the Lakers screwed up. You see, because of their limited cap space, prioritizing contract extensions for their players left the Lakers little room to extend Caruso to a fair offer sheet for his market value, and they lost him in free agency in the summer of 2021 when he signed with the Chicago Bulls. The Lakers, simply put, cannot make that type of mistake again, especially considering they have the requisite cap space to be able to extend Reaves to a fair contract. And given his age, still with upside potential, his value, especially from a shooting perspective, which the Lakers are lacking overall, it would be wise for them to do everything they can in order to retain him. For the Lakers, they have actually positioned themselves well going into next season, with one of the few teams in the NBA that actually has a decent amount of cap space. The only players they have as guaranteed deals on their books for next season are LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and Max Christie. That's it. It's a lot of money between LeBron and Anthony Davis, though, near $94 million, which is insane, especially considering LeBron is going to be making $53.3 million at the age of 39 and will still have a player option the following season. They have a $16.5 million team option on Malik Beasley, which I would think they're likely going to pick up given he was just part of that three-team trade with the Jazz and the Wolves, although who knows, it's very possible he just needed to be included in that deal for salary filler purposes, and maybe they aren't as invested in retaining Beasley, especially when they're going to be paying Reaves. And then they've also got the partial guarantees to both Mo Bamba and Jared Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt, I would imagine they're definitely going to make that fully guaranteed. Who knows what they'll do about Bamba, though. But here's the thing. As much cap space as they seemingly have going into the offseason, and I should actually be more clear when I say they have a lot of cap space, they have cap space to re-sign their own free agents. They actually don't have a lot of wiggle room to sign new free agents off the market unless it's in the form of a sign-and trade. The Lakers have a little over $127 million committed on their books next year, which includes the partial guarantees to Vanderbilt and Bamba, and it assumes they pick up the team option for Beasley, which is $16.5 million. So $127 million relative to the projected salary cap for next season, which is slated to be around $134 million. But regardless, they have the ability to re-sign most, if not all, of their free agents depending on the kind of deals they strike and whether management will be okay with them going over the luxury tax line, which is projected to be $162 million next season. But they also have D'Angelo Russell, who is set to be a free agent. He was making $31 million this season on the final year of his deal, which we all know was an overpay in a contract he received after his lone All-Star season with the Brooklyn Nets. They just traded for him and gave up a first-round pick and other assets to do so. Granted, it also enabled them to move on from Russell Westbrook, so there's that. But anyway, D'Lo is going to be looking for a payday. They also have to figure out what they want to do with Rui Hachimura, who is going to be a restricted free agent as well, which is yet another player they just traded for and gave up a bunch of second-round picks to do so. Then there was Lonnie Walker, who had this sort of nice start to the season when the Lakers were bad, and he was looking like one of the few young bright spots on that team. But ever since the trade deadline and the Lakers got better, Lonnie has fallen out of the rotation, so I wouldn't be surprised if they don't re-sign him. Dennis Schroeder, Troy Brown Jr., all guys who are free agents and will be looking again for paydays. But of all of those guys, the one you have to prioritize above all else, yes, even D'Angelo Russell, is Austin Reaves, and I'll explain why. Because as good as the Lakers have been since adding D'Lo to the team, and while yes, he desperately provides them the shooting they need to compete in today's NBA, D'Lo is one of the better three-point shooters in the NBA, putting up near 40% on over 7 attempts per game. But it's the impact that Reaves brings on both ends of the floor. Yes, I said both ends of the floor because unlike D'Angelo Russell, Reaves actually hustles and tries on defense. D'Lo has been pretty bad on defense for basically his whole career. And while no one is saying Austin Reaves is a good defender by any means, he has much better awareness and toughness on that end of the floor that simply can't be ignored. He's much better playing off the ball on defense, significantly better when it comes to staying on his man in isolation. And look, no one is arguing against the fact that D'Angelo Russell is clearly the better player between the two. He is without a doubt. Anyone who would say that Austin Reaves is a better player than D'Lo needs to think twice. The main difference being that Austin Reaves is younger and will likely cost you less than D'Angelo Russell. But the reason this offseason is going to be so difficult for the Lakers, and this will even be more so the case depending on how deep of a run they go into the playoffs and how these guys both perform, they need to be able to re-sign both players to maintain that level of shooting around LeBron and Anthony Davis. And this is going to be particularly challenging. For one, D'Lo is going to want a lot of money, especially coming off a big contract, and given he's in his prime, he's 27. This could very well be his last major contract, especially if he's looking for a long-term 5-year deal. And second, the cost of Austin Reaves, while maybe it's not going to look like the payday that D'Angelo Russell is going to be seeking, could get pretty steep given how he's been showing up this season, especially with the way he's been playing towards the end of the year. There have been some analysts saying that Reaves could be worth close to 4 years, $90 million, if not more, which in my opinion is a massive overpay. But then again, you saw guys like Duncan Robinson getting a fat bag when Reaves is better than Robinson even at that time of the signing. Jordan Poole signed a 4-year, $140 million contract this past offseason and has since looked pretty average. So while it's probably an overpay to give a guy like Austin Reaves a $90 million contract, it's not that far of a stretch when you've seen the type of money being thrown around at players who can shoot and offer some sort of versatility on the offensive end than just simply being a one-dimensional player. And remember, Reaves is a restricted free agent. He can go out and get offers from other teams, and the Lakers have the ability to match any offer sheet within 24 hours to keep him. And while that may seem like it's to the Lakers' advantage to have that control and being able to retain him, it actually could come back to bite them if the market for Reaves is considerably higher than what they thought, and they simply don't have the money to be able to match. Let's assume for a second that D'Angelo Russell is looking for $30 million a year, which mind you is less than what he's currently making. He very well could want more. And say Reaves does in fact get an offer sheet of 4 years, $90 million, which would put him around $22 million a year. Even if you're factoring in that the contract could be backloaded, meaning his annual salary would go up over the course of those 4 years, paying $50 million to both D'Angelo Russell and Austin Reaves, in addition to the over $90 million they have committed to AD and LeBron, isn't going to be doable when it comes to filling out the rest of the roster. It means you can't afford Hachimura, you can't re-sign guys like Lonnie Walker, Dennis Schroeder, Troy Brown Jr., and you're also limited to who you can actually sign outside of the mid-level exception who are coming from other teams, because at that point, the Lakers are already operating over the cap. So the Lakers need to decide. Do they try and work with D'Angelo Russell's camp to negotiate a pay cut, something that is reasonable that enables them to keep Reaves and D'Lo while also being able to fill out the rest of the roster on minimum or lower level deals? Or they're going to be forced to decide between one of the two of them in terms of who they keep for the future, because there is no doubt Reaves is going to get some pretty sizable offers from teams around the league, and the Lakers have to be prepared and have the requisite flexibility on their payroll to be able to match. Obviously, they can work out sign-in trades to get something of value for either of those players if they get to a point where they realize they're not going to be able to afford both of them, but those are tricky to execute and generally leaves the team doing the trade little leverage in trying to obtain some sort of value back instead of letting the player walk for nothing in free agency. But look, the fact of the matter is that it boils down to this: the Lakers have to do everything in their power in keeping Austin Reaves, making that the priority this offseason over everything else, and any other offseason moves should be planned around keeping Reaves first. And who knows, maybe Reaves' value is just nowhere close to being as high as people have been suggesting, and the Lakers can retain him for only around $12 to $14 million a year, which would give them much more flexibility in being able to keep guys like D'Angelo Russell, Hachimura, fully guaranteeing Vanderbilt's deal, picking up the team option on Beasley. But I get the sense that you're likely going to see some shocking numbers that teams are going to be throwing out for Austin Reaves. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. How much do you think Reaves will be receiving this offseason for a contract extension? And as always, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.